So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about seltzer water. I've become just slightly obsessed with it. I used to drink, I don't know, about 2 or 3 bottles of Topo Chico a day, and that's a brand that's really familiar where I live. But the problem with Topo Chico is that it is kind of expensive. It's a nicer seltzer water. And I realized that I couldn't spend the amount of money I was spending weekly on Topo Chico. So I moved on to a generic brand of seltzer water. And then a really wise lady told me, hey, why don't you try out a SodaStream? I kind of put that off, and then a friend said, I have a SodaStream. I don't really use it anymore. Do you want to check it out? And I said, sure. So for those of you that are not familiar with the SodaStream, this is a SodaStream. It allows you to put in SodaStream branded bottles, which are reusable, fill it with water, put it in here, and carbonize them. I'll show you how it works right now. So you take the top off, put it into the SodaStream, and then when you hear that little burp, that means it's done. And now you have seltzer water. And it tastes wonderful. The only problem with SodaStream is that it runs off of these proprietary canisters that cost $30 a piece, which can seem like a little chunk of change, but it's actually a big chunk of change once you start using the system regularly. This says that it can fill about 60 liters or 60 of these per $30, which in comparison is a lot less expensive than Topo Chico. But in reality, this only fills about 50 liters. And at 30 bucks a pop, I thought there has to be a cheaper way. So if I'm not using this, what am I using? So there's a couple of different companies that have made these, but basically what I'm using is a Paintball CO2 tank. Tipman brand here for me, and an adapter. And what this adapter does is it adapts the threads of the CO2 tank to the threads of the SodaStream. So now instead of $30 for about 50 liters, this is about 70 liters that it can do, and it's about $5 to fill up at your local sporting goods store. The problem is, with the current times we're in, it can be hard to get to that sporting goods store, and CO2 is becoming less and less popular for paintball guns, moving over to compressed air. And unfortunately, I can't use compressed air to make seltzer water. So what do? Well, that's where the home brewing supplies come in. So we can take this adapter off. This is just a normal paintball CO2 tank. Set our SodaStream aside. We can grab the home brewing 5-pound CO2 tank. This guy here, you can exchange them at home brewing shops. The tank itself is about $55, and this apparatus here to fill, this fill valve, is about $40. So now we're up to about $20 here, $12, so that's $30, plus 50, so we're at 80, and then this brings us up to 120. But when we think about it, that's only 4 refills of this. How much does it cost to refill this big tank? About 20 bucks. And it can fill this guy 5 times. So then if we break that down, that's only about 4 bottles for the same capacity as this guy. Sorry, $4 for the same capacity as this guy instead of $30. So it'll pay for itself pretty quick. You might be wondering, what is this? This is a paintball refill system, and it comes with a little thing on the end here, and that's a valve that depresses the pin on the top of the paintball, and then 2 valves here. This is a release valve, and this is the valve on the tank side. So how do I refill this if you get all these things? I will put links to the adapter, the paintball tank, this tank, and this guy, as well as the SodaStream in the description. So the first step here is to make sure your valve is open. Then we screw on our paintball tank. Make sure that both of these valves are in the closed position, which are this way. And now we're going to depress that pin. We heard a little hiss there. So now this is being fed up into here, but we're stopped on both sides. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure this valve is closed, which it is. And we're going to open this valve. So now this pressure can get all the way to here, but this is still closed. Now to fill this, we're going to slowly open this valve here. And we can hear that liquid CO2 moving from this tank into this tank. Now, one thing I didn't do today that will make these refills last a lot longer, and it actually just allows you to fill this up a lot more, is to put this in the freezer for about an hour. And that'll get it cold, which allows us to fill much more CO2 into the tank itself. So we'll give it about 10 seconds. Then we'll close this guy off here. We're now going to close this valve. So now the only thing that's open is this guy right here, and it's stopped out to the open air. The next thing we want to do is close the valve out of this tank. We're going to go like that. So now there is still pressurized CO2 here, but there isn't any pressure from our tank that can get out or from the big tank that can get out. Now this can be kind of loud. We need to release this valve, and that's going to release that pressure here before we unscrew this. If we unscrew this now, this pressure will shoot out onto our hand. We don't really want that. So what I'm going to do is slowly open this. And we can hear that that pressure has now escaped. Close it up. And we can unscrew this here. And we can feel that there's actually a bit more weight to it. There's more liquid CO2 in here. And we just screw on our adapter. Get this out of the way. And finally, we screw our adapter and tank into the SodaStream. And this size tank is a 20-ounce CO2 tank. And it should fit almost all SodaStream models. This is a very old one. There's newer ones available now. Now that that's all fit in there, put that back cover on, and we have our SodaStream. So I will grab a flat bottle, one that hasn't been filled. So this one is flat, there's no fizz that came out of there. We'll put it in here. And that CO2 can is a lot more filled because we just topped it off. So that's why it burped a lot sooner, it's higher pressure. So then we can push this, and we have seltzer water. They do sell quite a bit of flavorings. If you like soda over seltzer water, they have all the different popular sodas and some kind of fun knockoff names, but you can add that syrup into here if you're more of a soda person. So that is kind of the whole system so that I don't have to run on these anymore, which are pretty darn expensive. This should last about a week and a half to 2 weeks before I need to top it off again. And I drink 3 to 4 of these a day. So that works out to quite a bit of seltzer water. And it's a lot cheaper than this, but it's much, much cheaper than this. And there's no waste. So you can feel good about how we're kind of impacting the environment. Hope you enjoyed that. Again, the links to all of this are going to be in the description down below, and comment if you have any questions. Thanks.